Okay, you're live. Uh, all right then. Welcome back. This is the eighth episode of our live hangout sessions. Uh, this week we are almost 2 months in now. So we're gonna cover a few topics today. Uh, but okay, one of them, we are actually going to cover a few topics. Plus, we're going to see some real actionable problems from two of our members, Christian and Kayas. But before going on to that, I'd like to recap a small discussion we had a few moments back. It's about Meteor.com private hosting being down. I mean, being just phased out eventually within this month, I guess. So everyone should be ready to, if you have an app deployed there, you should be, ready to get going with something more serious. If you want to go with free tier options, I think Vico had some success with Bluemix in the past, and he has even written a blog post about it. So that might, since Bluemix is from IBM, it's a viable option. Other than that, Galaxy is still. I mean, they have these new tiers, pay-as-you-go options, and they start around something like $25, I guess. It may be a little bit
13,
steep.
13 or 12 or $13.
Sorry?
12 or $15.
Oh,
Galaxy.
yeah, but that's for the developer subscription.
Yeah.
Where the instances can get restarted out of your control. That can be problematic for your app. But the new subscription models allow you to fire up half a gig of a container with half computing unit power, and that's basically the smallest unit, something comparable to what you get at a minimum from DigitalOcean, and that costs around $25, I suppose. But the thing is, everything is built in. They're even working on integrating Let's Encrypt. So, that one-click deploy, one-click update, one-click everything flawless is kind of tempting to have. And as the app grows larger and you need multiple instances, you have more users, then you eventually begin realizing that maintaining a server with multiple instances of your app and keeping them in sync, especially deploying updates and rolling them over to new instances without interrupting the user experience, it might come in really handy. And the value proposition of that kind of price range actually, kind of shows its value there. But for the very, beginner level or early on apps, small ones, you might not actually see that $25 benefit there. But again, $25 is like a cup of coffee every day. So that depends on how much time you are willing to spare for deployment problems, deployment, etc. It's really just a click there. So it's still very beneficial to your development workflow as well. Anyhow, free tier Meteor.com hosting is an old story now. So if you are after the free tier, you either go with something like MOP and DigitalOcean and pay at a minimum of $5, or you go with something like Bluemix, as Rico has covered in the past, and hope it goes well. And I'm sure there are going to be other alternatives in the coming months. Anyhow, okay, so before going on, I'd like to also remind you that we want to discuss our project today. So maybe we should first, get that over with, because that's, I'm sure a few people, especially Necmettin and Lucas there, have some burning issues and problems with that. One of the problems being the version of Meteor we are using currently. We are trying to keep up with the upstream. The upstream is currently beta 16. But Lucas has tried it and could not upgrade. It's normal. A lot of people are facing that problem right now. The latest stably upgradable version seems to be 13. Uh, we really don't have to be on that kind of leading edge. It's going to be solved eventually. They are doing all those rapid releases, so probably sometime next week we're going to be able to upgrade to 17, I guess. But it's wise to stick to 1.3 at the moment because 1.2 seems to be old story now, unless you have an app that you really want to maintain on that architecture. But you know, moving forward, 1.3 ES6 imports uh, are really valuable to app structuring, and especially the build times are getting much improvement. There are open issues about build times, granted that, but it's going to improve in the near future because they are just on top of that. Okay, so about the project and what we're gonna do, what we are trying to do, where we are at right now. My personal initial intent was to provide you guys with a playground, so that if any one of you wanted to, play with an aspect of Meteor development, uh, be it a beginner level aspect, be it a non-Meteor, just plain old JavaScript development aspect, be it testing, integration, some very high level stuff, mobile development, anything. Uh, I want to have an app to provide a goal and a set of tasks for you to, test your desired skills on, whatever that may be. Well, it was perhaps an ORAC as a target because it kind of got complicated in terms of what the specs would be, and I see that a few people have raised concerns and viable concerns about the complexity really increasing. So in the end, a few people decided to take the plunge and start off with something small that could also be rolled into the app that we're going to build in the long run. And what we started with is a small application to arrange and schedule our meetings. Try to get people to create an account, create an event, have other people vote on the proposed time slots for that event, and also propose topics, discussion topics for that event. And Julia, Kayes, and Rico and Lucas have committed an initial structure. First of all, they started with a bare bones Meteor 1.3 app, and then Rico introduced a basic Bootstrap layout and an account system. Kayes and Julia, I think they have provided a starter layout and a flow.
I haven't done anything yet.
Oh, you haven't? Okay, all right then. Julia did that, right? Okay. With a basic flow router setup. So that's where we are at right now, and what we need to discuss today is our very immediate, very short-term goal, like just a few weeks long. What we want to do, if any one of you guys specifically want to work on something, and before discussing that, I should also reiterate, or just to summarize a very recent discussion between Lucas, Necmettin, and I. The point being, Julia asked if we could have a CI infrastructure such that we don't accidentally break anything. Lucas had already, written some posts about continuous integration, so he knows a few things about it. And then I immediately suggested if anyone wants to work on tests, this would be a great opportunity. My thinking was tests can be independent of the overall project structure. So they could be implemented for upcoming features that are not developed yet. They could be implemented for features that do exist, and try to make sure that upcoming iterations to those features don't break anything. So if properly organized, what I believe and know is that tests do not interfere with development workflow for other developers who are not aware of the tests. So I think it's a psychological barrier rather than a technical one. Granted, it is actually set up correctly. But Necmettin rightfully disagrees, and I think we should really hear your concerns from your points of view with your words, Necmettin. Would you mind sharing your opinion on the topic? I think Necmettin. Yeah. Oh yes, he's in mobile. Okay, he won't be able to. Okay, I'll try to recap his point of view. Although I do disagree with him, uh, he says it just brings in complexity, and then he rather sees the project moving on with defined set of small goals and distributed tasks, and people own up to the tasks. And if testing is to be introduced, it has to be introduced as an overall project guidance and overall project responsibility, so that anyone developing features should also develop the tests. And that would eventually be hard on people who are not experienced with testing, who are not experienced with Meteor, and so there goes the complexity concern there. My side of the story is, if you don't want to do tests, just ignore them. There are just a bunch of code there lying around in folders labeled as test, and that's it. Just dismiss them. Anyhow, we should perhaps hear your opinions on this and the overall state of the project and what we want to do. Anyone wants to share some opinions?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. Yeah.
Basically, to me, it feels like a bit complicated, to be honest. The process, for example, the stuff we're doing right now, like accounts, basically a Doodle clone, let's say, stuff we're doing on Doodle. This stuff can be made with Meteor, perhaps in a couple of hours, right? But I'm thinking like, okay, the amount of complexity, the stuff I don't know, that's what is complex to me, actually. For example, Circle CI integration, I don't know much about that. And then there's like testing and linters. I never use, I know what linter is, but I never use it. And seeing all that is kind of like discouraging. Like, okay, let's say I work for half a day and do some pull request, and then it's like it's uncertain territory for me, at least. Otherwise, let's say if it was like a normal thing, no Circle CI integration, no testing, no linters, stuff like that. I mean, I think we could have made I could have at least made some progress. Do some like real stuff. For example, accounts and all that. That's a start, but it takes this long to go through the pull request scope. I'm thinking, okay, working in a team is really difficult, and I'd rather work on my own. That's my take from this, to be honest. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Okay, thank you for sharing that. Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, you're right. Beginning this whole adventure, one of the things I thought would be cool is to, get you guys going on with team development, because, a life of a developer is more complicated than writing code. It involves dealing with stakeholders, dealing with clients, dealing with people who have nothing to do with coding, dealing with other coders, dealing with people who oppose your ideas or intentions. And even though you have a full mutual agreement and understanding between two developers, even that is hard to get going and making progress. So to have some kind of an experience that resembles how teams work in an enterprise kind of environment would actually be beneficial for you guys. That's what I thought. In fact, you know, I still do because I hear what you're saying like this. You say it takes just a couple of hours to develop something like Doodle, but I feel stuck when we want to do that in a team. Well, that's the point for you at least. For example, for Chris, it would just be the main problem would be adding the account packages, designing the templates, designing the event handlers. But for you, that will be easy. But the challenge for you, and perhaps the part you should first taking a closer look at, would be how CI works or how to write a basic test. See, this is a learning experience. It's not a showcase that you show us your skills. It's a place where you should be feeling the most vulnerable, the least experienced. You should have millions of questions so that other people here can answer them. Other people here could lead you and show you how easy it could actually be. But still, having said this, it's easier said than done. It's not really very easy to look at a project structure that has no working code, but still hundreds of lines of configurations and files and integrations and stuff. Yeah, I mean, I see that. That's tough. So maybe this is something we need to solve first. Maybe we all have to first learn how to onboard, peer developers on a project that has these requirements. Or we could say, okay, forget about these, at least for a few weeks. Let's just develop and then start adding tests. I'm open to all ideas. I see all kinds of points of view here. They are all valid. And I don't know. Lucas, what do you think?
Actually, I think you just made too big of a deal. It's all done automatically, so I hear myself double.
I think we lost you there.
What did you say?
We lost you.
But now you can hear me again.
Yeah, you're back.
Yeah, I think with the ESLint file, it already is set up. So if you use a modern IDE like Atom or I don't know, WebStorm or stuff like that, you don't have to do anything. The editor says to you, hey, you have a white space too much or stuff like that. It's not a real problem. And also the Circle CI integration is not that big of a deal, so you don't have to do anything. Just when you do a pull request, the CI checks if you did the right code indentation and stuff like that. So I don't know. I can't.
Okay, we're losing you there, but I think I understand your point. So let me recap that for everyone. Lucas says the CI basically does two things. One of them being linting the project. Linting means, does it adhere to standard guidelines? For example, the number of spaces that you use instead of tabs. Is it a 2-space thing? Is it a 4-space thing? Do we use semicolons at the end? Do we use a space between a function declaration and its parentheses, etc.? I mean, this is important because we are all using editors and IDEs that once you import the code, it looks at it and reformats it as soon as you save a file. It removes line endings, it adds extra spaces, it converts tab to spaces, and this is okay when you're developing on your own. But when you are sharing the same code base between two people, and those two people have different IDEs and different settings, and those settings change the overall code. For example, you save a file, you add a semicolon to something, and once you hit save, the IDE changes the complete file structure just because of its formatting requirements. And then when you commit that back to the repository, the other developer thinks that that person has made a huge change, but that was actually just fixing a typo, for example. So in order to avoid that, there's this tool called ESLint. There's this idea called linting. Linting means does the code work, adhere to the general language guidelines, and does it adhere to some standards, like code formatting standards. So a continuous integration tool first does this, uses a standard configuration file and checks the code if that's okay, if it meets the team standards, okay? And the way to define the team standard is provide a configuration file, and that's called ESLint in our case. Why ESLint? Because we are now using ES 2015, and ESLint is the de facto standard for checking JavaScript files developed in that, by those standards. Well, having said that, there are multiple configuration options for that, but Lucas kindly shared one of them. So he took the plunge where he says, okay, this is a configuration file that I use, and I can integrate that with our continuous integration tool, such that you don't have to do anything. Once you commit any piece of code, our tool will tell you that it's based on our standards or not. Well, if it's okay, if it passes the test, that code formatting test, fine. If it doesn't, well, then you need to do something. And what's that? It's not actually too complicated. It's something, any IDE. You are perhaps using Atom or WebStorm or Vim, I guess. Yeah, there are other editors and IDEs out there, but probably you are using one of those three. And all those three are compatible with the ESLint configuration file and standards. So all you need to do is read the documentation for your development environment, Atom probably, or WebStorm, or whatever it is, and how to make sure your IDE or your editor recognizes that ESLint file and uses it to warn you before even committing your code. At development time, as you typing some stuff, that ESLint tool actually checks the code and says, hey, stop there, you're using tabs, change your editor configuration, or whatever you do. And some IDEs are even clever enough to make that for you. They see the ESLint file and configuration there, they say, oh, okay, this project has a specific requirement in terms of formatting, let me do that for you. So the first thing about CI is that. And I think that's something we definitely have to do, because otherwise it is just impossible, to exchange code with each other. And the other thing about a CI tool is running tests on the application if features break or not. Well, I think we could do a compromise there. We could just, keep testing out of the CI integration and still allow people to create test folders and test libraries, perhaps, and commit them. And once they are satisfied with that, what we could do is check the tests and make sure they do run okay, and then integrate them with our CI tool and see how it goes. So to perhaps ease away Necmettin's pains there, and also to encourage Julia to write proper code, we could say that if any one of you guys want to work on tests, just go ahead, work on the tests. But we're not going to be integrating them on our integration tools. But you will be able to, run the tests if you want to run them and see how it goes. And then a few weeks from now, we could see what we're going to do. Okay? I think that would be a good compromise. I don't know if I truly wish Necmettin were able to. Oh yes, hi there.
Hello. First, I'm on mobile, so you may lose me sometimes. Just warn me. Okay. The thing is, when we named the when we named it Meteor Mentor, I thought our mentors will teach us how to do CI, how to write tests, how to use reactivity and things like that. What I mean is, I was expecting that our mentors will basically teach us things, right? But when we talk about a project, CI and tests are a given, a must. They have to be there. So I'm not saying we should just leave tests out or do no continuous integration. I'm saying it would be nice if somebody taught us how to write tests for Meteor. That's what I'm saying.
Cool. Okay. All right.
I may have sounded like I don't want anything to do with tests, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
know very well that
All right then.
tests have to be there.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Necmettin. Well then, I admit that perhaps there has been a huge misunderstanding on our part, my part, significantly. Okay, and all right then. Then perhaps we should also discuss or reiterate again, why we have a project and what the purpose of this whole group thing is. Well, the purpose of this whole group thing is to guide you guys or have any. Okay, let's say we have 10 people here. Okay, and one of the people want, or two, three people want to learn testing, and one of you guys is really experienced with testing. The way this mentoring groups work is the person who is experienced with a topic immediately becomes the mentor for that topic, and he could offer guidance. But the guidance does not mean teaching. The guidance means showing the other people, the ones who learn that topic, the right places to look, the right documentation to read, the gotchas that you should be aware of before even beginning, and then perhaps reviewing some code, perhaps answering specific questions. But it's not like it's not a class curriculum with topics and things to cover and then advance and then test and then repeat and rinse and repeat kind of thing. This is not a lesson. This is a guidance. So if you want to learn something, you should immediately start learning that. But the way that works is you could ask anyone here who is experienced with, okay, if the topic is testing, who is experienced with testing, okay, where do I begin? It's like Meteor testing is a really moving target. It's really hard. It's going to be kind of resolved with Meteor 1.3, but up to now it was kind of hard. Anyhow, where do I begin with testing? What should I read? Which tools are out there? Which ones do I need to look at? Which ones should I especially be interested in? What is testing anyway? I mean, why do I need it? For what aspects of my development workflow do I need it? To what extent do I need to incorporate tests? I mean, these are all valid questions that the mentor should answer. And then at that point, you should be, reading up on the literature, checking out the examples, code, trying to do stuff, and get stuck. And once you're stuck, then the mentor again comes into play and says, all right, man, you see that configuration you did over there? Well, that's kind of tricky. Remove that and try this instead, and then, let us know how it goes. And that's it. That's the task of the mentor in this organization. And I repeat, anyone can be a mentor for any topic. So, for example, I personally am not experienced with React. I'm a React beginner, like many of you are. But I'm fairly certain that I'm a Blaze ninja. Okay, anything with Blaze, just throw it at me. I can solve that problem. See, I will probably need a React mentor in this group soon. So, or for example, about CI and integrating Meteor with a CI tool. Lucas is a perfect candidate to teach others about CI integration. Okay, and coming back to the topic of testing. Okay, then I think we could be it should be safe to say that if anyone wants to start off with testing, even if you don't know testing and if you just want to learn, and since this is a learning experience, the main goal of the project is to create a playground to learn new stuff. Okay, I mean those one or a few people who want to learn testing could take on that task. And I and some other people who are experienced in testing could actually, kick that off. All right then. Having said that, if any one of you want to start working on the app, the current state is we have a basic account system that kind of works or doesn't. It has a few problems with the packages added. It's currently using the standard Meteor packages, not the more modern accounts UI, but it works. It uses Bootstrap for styling. I suggested using Bootstrap because any component library you find out there, be it jQuery, be it Blaze or React or anything, most of them are based on Bootstrap classes. So instead of dealing with organizing our class names and DOM structures to work, let's put the HTML and CSS kind of problems away, and using Bootstrap is a safety measure there. So that's why I insisted on including Bootstrap in our project. And then we have a basic flow router layout. The reason we chose flow router is we could easily switch to React when we want to. In fact, we probably will switch out some of the Blaze parts to React just for sake of learning in a few weeks. So if anyone wants to kick off, generating PRs for the project, this is a perfect time to do that. Tests, yeah, I know what you will be testing right now, but we perhaps we will be needing some libraries to work with time zones, displaying time in different to different locales and calculating time differences. I don't know, those kind of stuff. Someone should perhaps be working on a database data structure. We don't know how we are going to store the data. How do we structure our collections and schemas? Necmettin is a perfect candidate for that, I guess. Kayas, I keep hearing from you these problems about notifications and chat and stuff. This would be a great opportunity for you to, perhaps create a notification collection and, listen for changes on the other collections and then inform other people about. For example, let's say I created an event and 5 people voted on that event. I definitely would want to be aware of that. I don't want, keep looking at the page to see if anyone has voted. Maybe you could work on notifications.
Yeah, notification is something. Yeah, I've been doing it.
Yeah, you keep bringing that up, so perhaps it's inevitable that you work on that. Anyhow, so that's the point. The project is there. We finally committed some code. This is a perfect time to grab a piece and start working on that.
Can I pardon?
Sorry, yeah, sure, please.
Do we have a product owner?
No. The problem is no one stepped up to own the project. Rob Fallows kindly accepted to be the champion. But the role of the champion is not to own the product. It is to perhaps resolve some conflicts, perhaps to take some hard decisions, or just to guide you guys. But the general ownership idea should be something that you guys have. This is your project, so at least 1 or 2 of you should really step up to say that, okay, I want to take the initiative. If there are some hard decisions to make,
yeah, that's me.
Okay,
that's me.
Well done. Okay, welcome, owner. Okay, well, once more, I'd like to remind you that the ownership is not a permanent thing. It's not a monarchy. This is a team effort, but it takes guts to say that out loud. Okay, I want to own this thing. So I congratulate you for that, Necmettin. Thank you.
Thank you.
So you should definitely be checking in with Lucas, because he has been kindly sharing an enormous time setting up GitHub and accepting PRs, and we really should not be exploiting him that much. So you should find some time to work with him to get a general idea of how we do the PRs and accept them, or the CI things, etc. Let me know how it goes. And if in the meantime anyone else wants to step up to following the project, please feel free to do that, because Necmettin obviously won't be able to dedicate full time to this project, and someone else should also be assuming that responsibility with him. So if anyone wants to do that, you are more than welcome to do so. Okay, so let's discuss some Meteor specifics, because it's like we don't have too much time left. I'd like to, first answer Chris's question, even though he's not here yet. His question was about accessing the data on a template, and how to do that from the JS side of things, not the HTML side of things. I'm talking about Blaze and Space for us here. Okay, the thing is, with Blaze, templates have a few features. One of them is the callbacks. The callbacks are the on-created and on-rendered and on-destroyed callbacks. What they are before a template gets created, gets prepared for rendering. That's the first thing that happens. It's the on-created callbacks fire. And whatever callback function you have provided to that, they run. And then once the creation is done and that it gets rendered into the view, into the DOM, initially without the data, the unrendered callback runs. And then the helpers kick in, the data kick in, the subscriptions kick in, and data fills in the parts in the template. And once everything is done, and we go off to another page, for example, or just remove it, the on-destroyed callback kicks in. And then whatever we want to do before the template gets away, that's the on-destroyed callback. So those three callbacks have a means to access the data context. And that is called the this. Anything data related for that template, actually the template instance that contains the reactive vars, the subscriptions, or the template scope auto runs, or the template data context, the this.data object, they all reside on the template instance. And the template instance within our template lifecycle callback is this. So if you want to access the data, what you do is this.data. That's basically it. So for example, if you have a data context with, for example, username property, this.data.username is the username that you see on the template side. As long as it is actually available, the data has arrived from the server. And then we have the helpers. Helpers are kind of different, because although it has a this context in it, this is different than the template instance. It still refers to the DOM and the surrounding environment, but it's not reliable. It changes. So instead of that, since all JavaScript functions somehow has a this context, so that's this context there. So the safest thing to do there is use the actual template instance reference. And the template instance reference within a helper is actually called a template.instance. So I know this is, having this somewhere and then template.instance somewhere else. It's not consistent, but that's how it works. So within a template helper, when you want to access a template instance, what you do is template.instance. And if you want to access the data context, what you want to do is template.instance.data. So the instance has a parentheses there, by the way. So that's the second gotcha there. And then we have the events. And within the events, it's again different. Yes, you do have a this again, depending on where the event has been fired off. And that this is actually the context of that environment. But again, it is unreliable. So instead of that, an event handler provides you with a template callback. So like an event declaration is something like click something function, and that function has two parameters there, two arguments, event and the template. So the second argument there is the template instance. So T template dot data is the overall template data context. But when you use block helpers like each or if or with, those block helpers kind of change the context there. They have their own inner context. So how to access that one? Because the template data context belongs to the utmost template instance. So to access the specific point that the user has interacted with an event, you use the blaze.getData method. Blaze.getData accepts a basic argument. That argument is a DOM endpoint. That DOM, you say blaze.getData, and what is the DOM endpoint? All the event is event.currentTarget. So within the event handler, you have an event argument and a template argument. The template argument is the overall template instance, and the event argument is actually what the user has created. And it's a standard DOM event. And event.currentTarget, from the point of view of a DOM, is the exact point where the user has interacted with. And for that exact point, if you say blaze.getData, open and close parentheses, and within those parentheses says event.currentTarget, you get the exact data context surrounding that specific DOM element. And especially if you are using each blocks and with blocks that change the data context, that's the best option. But spacebars have some better utilities to better manage the data context. You can use the let keyword within the spacebar context. And if you use the let keyword, you could specifically assign a data context, and the assignment to the let makes sure that wherever you are within the template, the data still refers to that declaration. It's like, or the new each assignment. Instead of each people, you could say each person in people, and use that person assignment from there onwards, making sure that you don't lose the context, you don't lose the depth of the context. You don't have to go dot dot parent dot dot parent. You know that person is always a single argument from the people array. So I know this has been a really fast recap, but believe me, this makes sense. And once you get used to using which one and where it's supposed to be used, it gets really easy to manage. I mean, Blaze is not that scary. Blaze is not that unpredictable. Once you know what you're doing with it. Okay, so if Chris were here, I would ask him if he was satisfied with this explanation, but I'm sure he's going to respond within the Slack channel later on. Kayas, you had a few questions.
Yeah,
Sorry,
but
I'm interrupting. I'm out, but I will listen to the rest
Okay.
when I have time,
Okay.
and I'll try to own the project.
All right.
Nice.
Have a great weekend, owner.
Bye.
Okay, Kayas.
well, my battery is dying, so I don't know whether I'll be able to show everything. But let's see. Let me. Where's the share screen? Yep, share screen.
You are not presenting to everyone, so.
Wait. Okay. Right. So this is my screen.
Okay.
First of all, let me show you what I did with the publish function you told me about last week, and I fixed it. It worked quite well. The fields is there. I fixed all the publish functions,
Great.
and it worked really great. And yeah, I was able to achieve like less data coming in, exactly the data I want. So yeah.
Great.
So that is the achievement I wanted to show you. Yeah. So basically, what I want to show you now is, you see this request photo access, right? As soon as the user clicks it, wait, what's the thing? Yeah, as soon as the user clicks it, I put notification in there, right? And thing is, when I want the user, when I click this grant photo access, when I click this button, I want a notification for to go to this user as well, the sister user. All right. Basically, this is the code. So when someone clicks at friend, I insert this into the collection, the notification collection.
Okay.
Right. Scene false, type photo, who invited, and who he invited, basically. Obviously, inviter is the Meteor user, the guy who's clicking the button, and it shows into the person he has invited, right? Yep, I call the insert notification simple. It's just a method, right? So basically, I want, when I say, let's say, cancel request or accept request, when I click those buttons, I want a notification to go to the other user, right? Like, okay, this person has canceled the request, or this person has accepted your request, stuff like that. When I went on to implement that, the problem was there was this mismatch was going on, and I was thinking, okay, this is just one button, and there are so many other things I want the notifications to flow into this one place. This just one place. Let's say photo request, right? The chat is kind of similar as well. So it's basically a simple problem of all your notifications coming in the same place. And how to handle that?
Okay. Well. So. Yeah, okay, we're doing this picture-in-picture thing again. Okay, you're not presenting anymore, okay?
Okay.
Okay, well, instead of walking through code here, because we don't have a very specific code base to work on here, because this is a general problem with generating notifications. I'll tell you about my approach in such situations. To recap the problem, users in your application can create different kinds of content, can create different kinds of interactions. And what you want is to make sure people who need to be aware of those other interactions in the app be notified of those interactions. So what is a notification? A notification is basically this. Who is to be notified? The recipient of the notification. What's the content that you want to show on the notification window? And what happens when you click on that notification? I mean, you could enhance this with extra information, but the most basic three things are those. Who are we notifying? What are we notifying them with? And what happens when he clicks on the notification? So basically, you could create a collection that contains the recipient user ID, a piece of text, a notification text, anything like you got a new mail, you got a new invitation. Your invitation was rejected. Your invitation was accepted. Anything. You got a new message. Some piece of text, and then a URL. When you click on that text, what should the application do? Where you should go, for example. For example, you want to go to the user profile page if the notification is about the user. Or you want to go to the messages page if that notification is about a message, for example. But you could craft that URL such that it also includes detailed information like messages slash a message ID or a chat room ID or for users slash a user ID or profile slash a user ID. You see where I'm trying to go at? So this is a very basic notifications pattern, and in order to achieve this, you need to have two operations for each one single operation. The first operation is to create the interaction. For example, send a friend request. And the second operation is create a notification on a notifications collection for that friend request. So the way to do that is either using a method instead of creating a friend request by directly inserting into a collection. You could create a method that first inserts into the friend requests collection, or however you are doing it, and then on a second operation, create an insert on the notifications collection. Okay, and then on the client, each client could subscribe to the notifications that have the recipients as this.user ID. Okay. You could also use something like notification read, unread notification, etc. Yeah, use other properties on the same documents to track if the notifications are read or not unread. Okay. So an intuitive way would be to use a method, but a more aspect-oriented way would be to use hooks, for example. There's this awesome package called matb33 collection hooks. Using that, you could say something like friend requests collection dot after dot insert, and that's a hook, which means after you do an insert on the friend requests collections, now do this. Go and insert on the notifications collection this information. See? That's a more automated approach. So instead of incorporating that piece of code in everywhere you create those things, okay, yeah, you're right. I'm putting the name of the package on the Slack channel right now. Thank you for informing me about that.
My battery is about to die, so.
Okay, if it dies, you can listen to this afterwards, anyhow. So the approach will be whenever you create, if you use a hook, whenever you create a new document in a collection, the hooks on that collection run. So you are now free of thinking about the next thing or the chain of events in your application. Instead of thinking about that, you concentrate on one task, and the hooks on that task run independently. So that you make sure you have all the necessary operations going on there. In fact, using hooks is a really powerful approach. You could do database cleanups, you could do aggregations, you could do summary, you could do counts, you could do all sorts of. You could send out emails to people. I use collection hooks very extensively because in any kind of application, basically, when you do something, you also want other things to follow up on that. And placing them within hooks is a great thing. This collection hooks package has utilities for doing things before or after inserting, before or after updating a document, before or after deleting a, removing a document, even before or after finding a document. So you should definitely go check that out, and I'm sure you will find good use to them. Apart from that, if you want to have discuss some specific implementation details, guys, about this, I'd be more than happy to take a look at your code. For example, let's discuss this on the Slack channel, and perhaps if you could make some progress with this kind of approach, I can first answer your questions and then review your code. Maybe you could work something out. You could perhaps do a peer programming session later on this week. Okay. So, guys, we have actually discussed the project more than anything today. I'm sorry if you are disappointed about that, but that was something we had to do. I think the template discussion, although it was really quick, is something really valuable, and you should, if you are going to continue maintaining or developing new Blaze apps, and I think you should, because it's much easier to onboard than React, and especially for quick apps, there's less boilerplate, and there are lots of great packages on Atmosphere, so you could still continue using Blaze for some of your projects. I think you should take a look at the template callbacks and how they work. Yeah, and then the notification and the collection hooks thing is, I think you should take a look at the collection of packages. Having said that, I want to remind you of some few other packages. For example, one of the things people often ask about is how to join multiple collections in a publication, how to publish from a master detail two different collections. That's done with the my favorite packages, Raywood Publish Composite. You should definitely check this out. There's also the collection helpers package. I just forgot the namespace. I think, there's a collection. Just search for collection helpers on Atmosphere. It's a great package to attach helper functions to the collection and document instances. I think these will be great to create apps that require joins and multiple collections needing to be handled together. And then there's the astronomy package. If you feel confident with the current packages, like simple schema and collection hooks and publish composite and collection helpers, maybe it's time for you to take a look at how astronomy works. It's Jagged Astronomy, guys, and it's a really powerful ORM style package that encapsulates schemas, relations, validations, and helpers, migrations, and all those stuff. It's worth taking a look at. It's much easier to test actually. But it's kind of it does incorporate some advanced ORM object relational mapping paradigms and features. So if you are not if you find this whole schemas and relations and all those kinds of things kind of hard to grasp, don't start off with astronomy. Simple schema is a great place to start, and of course the official Meteor guide is a great place to take a look at first. So we are actually over our time for today, so I'm sorry if I couldn't take more questions, but I promise I'm going to make it up to you next week. In the meantime, the Slack channel is sufficiently active. If you have any follow-up questions, or if you have any questions that you didn't get a chance to ask today, just shoot. I'll do my best to answer. So that's it, guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. I've done a lot of talking, but hopefully, if Kaius also wants to do that, we could do some, more coding stuff during this week, and hope you do the same. So have a great weekend. Take care. Goodbye.
Bye.